Rome, a name that still echoes through history, but among all the wonders born from the heart of the greatest empire ever, only one has stood as an eternal symbol. A structure so huge, so perfect, it still seems impossible today, yet it was built almost 2,000 years ago, without machines, without reinforced concrete, without modern tools. Only with the power of human skill, hard work, and the will of the empire. It's the Colosseum, a giant of stone, created not only to amaze, but to rule the crowds, to show Rome's strength, to carve the emperor's glory into eternity. But behind that perfection lies a story of ambition, sweat, blood, and spectacle. In this journey, we'll discover how the Romans built one of the most incredible wonders in human history, why it was built, what happened inside, among sand, fire, and iron, and how it survived nearly 20 centuries of wars, earthquakes, and destruction. Because this isn't just the story of a building, it's the story of a dream carved in stone, a dream made in stone. The history of the Colosseum doesn't begin with stone, it begins with fire. The fire that destroyed Rome in the year 64 AD during the reign of Emperor Nero. A terrible fire turned most of the city to ashes, and many believed Nero himself had started it to clear space for his grand projects. And indeed, on those ruins, he built a huge palace. The Domus Aurea, the Golden House. It had artificial lakes, gardens, and golden statues. It was a symbol of arrogance while the people lived in misery. But after Nero's death, everything changed. A new emperor rose to power, Vespasian, founder of the Flavian dynasty. He wanted to erase the memory of the tyrant and win back the love of the people. So he made a powerful choice. On the site of Nero's private lake, he drained the water, and in its place, he ordered the construction of a great public amphitheatre, a place for everyone, rich and poor alike. A monument not only to Rome's power, but also to its generosity. That project wasn't just architecture, it was propaganda, it was a promise. The message was clear. Where once stood the luxury of one man, now will rise the joy of 70,000 citizens. The Colosseum wasn't built only to impress. It was built to give power to an emperor, to bring people together, and to prove that Rome would last forever. It was the year 72 AD. Rome was alive with rumors and excitement. Under Emperor Vespasian's orders, work had begun on something no one had ever dared to imagine. An amphitheatre so vast it seemed like a dream or madness. First, the artificial lake of Nero's palace was drained. Then the digging began. Deep foundations, meters below the surface. Roman engineers knew well the strength of the pale stone from Tivoli. Huge, perfectly cut blocks were carried to Rome on ox-drawn carts and lifted with wooden cranes powered by hand. They worked day and night. Laborers, slaves, architects, blacksmiths, masons, thousands of men united in one enormous construction site. Scaffolding climbed toward the sky, held together by beams and ropes. The sound of hammers, saws, and voices filled the air, but the true strength of the Colosseum wasn't only in its stone. It was in Roman engineering genius. The structure was made of arches and vaults, designed to spread the weight evenly across every part. Each arch supported the next, creating a modular system that made the building both strong and quick to construct. A perfect mix of power and efficiency. The outer walls were built of travertine, held together with iron clamps, while the inside was made of tuff and brick, a mix that combined lightness, strength, and speed. In just 8 years, under Vespasian's son Titus, the work was finished. No one believed such a could rise in so little time, but Rome didn't build only with her hands. She built with her will, and when it was finally inaugurated in the year 80 AD, the Colosseum was ready to host the greatest show on earth. As soon as visitors entered through one of its 80 arches, they found themselves before something no one had ever seen. An enormous arena, able to hold up to 70,000 people, seated by social rank. The higher your status, the closer you sat to the action. The poorer you were, the higher you went. But every Roman citizen could enter. It was free, offered by the emperor himself. In the center stood the arena, a vast wooden platform covered with sand meant to soak up blood. All around it, a tall protective wall, and beneath it, the hypogeum, a hidden maze of tunnels, cages and lifts that made the Colosseum come alive. Through hand-powered elevators and secret trapdoors, wild beasts, gladiators, prisoners, and even entire stage sets were brought up to the surface. It was a theater of death, but staged with the precision of an empire. It began in the morning with the Venatianis, the hunts. Tigers, lions, bears, elephants, panthers, exotic beasts never seen before in Europe were slain to thrill the crowd. Then came the public executions, condemned men facing wild animals or reenacting ancient myths, dying in agony for the audience's amusement. Finally, the most awaited of all, the gladiators. Trained fighters, often slaves or prisoners of war, but sometimes volunteers chasing fame. They battled under strict rules, wearing shining armor, in fights that were part choreography, part brutal reality. The crowd decided. The emperor judged, thumbs up or thumbs down. On great occasions, the arena itself was flooded, turning into a lake for real naval battles. Naumachia, ships were built, armies clashed, seas raged, all beneath the stunned eyes of 70,000 spectators. But this wasn't only entertainment. It was power. Giving the people bread and circuses meant keeping them fed, united and loyal to the emperor. In the Colosseum, Rome showed both its most savage face and its most spectacular heart. At first glance, the Colosseum impresses with its size, but it's when you look closer that you see the true genius of Roman engineering. It measures about 189 meters long and 156 meters wide. Its original height was almost 50 meters, as tall as a modern 17-story building. It was the largest amphitheatre ever built in the Roman Empire, and it remains the largest ever built in history. The exterior rose on 4 stacked levels, decorated with arches and columns in Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian styles. But the real wonder was hidden inside. The Colosseum was designed to work like a modern stadium. Fluid, safe, efficient. 70,000 spectators could enter and leave in just a few minutes, thanks to an extraordinary system of vomitoria, the radial corridors and stairways that guided the crowd in perfect order. Each step was a step closer to perfection. Each sector had its own numbered entrance, carved in stone, just like today's arenas. The seating area, known as the cavea, was strictly divided by social class. Closest to the arena sat the senators, consuls, and nobles. Above them were the knights and ordinary citizens. Higher still, women freed slaves and the poor. Every class had its place. Above the highest level, a ring of pillars and beams supported the velarium, a huge awning handled by sailors from the imperial fleet. It protected part of the audience from the burning sun, turning the arena into a shaded theater. Inside, everything had its function. Long internal corridors, hidden stairways, water tanks, warehouses, reserved seats for priests and officials, even rooms used to prepare the shows. The Colosseum wasn't just a place of entertainment. It was a perfect machine where every stone had a purpose and every space was built to amaze and to endure. And then there were the smells, the sounds, the atmosphere. Perfumes and incense filled the air to hide the stench of blood. Flute players, drummers, and trumpeters followed every fight, amplifying each moment of tension. Everything was designed to excite, to astonish, to keep the crowd's eyes glued to the spectacle. And finally, the legend. The name Colosseum doesn't come from the amphitheater itself, but from the colossal statue that once stood beside it. The Colossus of Nero, more than 30 meters tall. The statue has vanished, but the name remained, carrying through the centuries the fascination of a place where reality went beyond imagination. But even giants aren't eternal. When the Western Roman Empire fell, the Colosseum too began to fade. In the 5th century, the Great Games ended. The last gladiatorial fights took place under Emperor Honorius, and then silence. The costs were too high and the times had changed. Christianity had become the new faith of Rome, and it viewed those brutal shows with horror. The Colosseum lost its purpose and slowly began to change. In the Middle Ages, it became a fortress, then a shelter for the poor, and even a quarry. Blocks of travertine, marble columns, and iron clamps were taken away to build churches and palaces. Even St. Peter's Basilica. Then came the earthquakes, especially the one in 1349, which tore down entire sections of the outer walls. Nature took over. Weeds, ivy, and wild plants grew among the ruins. By the 16th century, the Colosseum had become so overgrown that botanists came to study its rare species of plants, and yet it never died. In the 18th century, the popes began to see it as a sacred place, a symbol of Christian martyrdom. A cross was erected inside, and the use of the ruins as a quarry was finally banned. The first preservation efforts began. Then came the 19th century. During the Italian unification, the Colosseum became not just a Christian symbol, but a national one, a monument to the identity of a reborn Italy. Restoration, studies, and reinforcement works were carried out. Stone by stone, it was saved. Today, the Colosseum stands again as one of the most visited places in the world. Millions of people walk through its arches every year, touch its stones, take pictures, and try to imagine the roar of a crowd that has been silent for almost 2,000 years. And without realizing it, they breathe the same air that once carried the scent of dust, iron, sweat, and power. The Colosseum has survived wars, earthquakes, and centuries of plunder, not because it's made of stone, but because it's made of history. The Colosseum is not just a monument, it's a silent witness to everything Rome has ever been. A stage of glory and cruelty, of genius and power. Every stone tells a story, every arch echoes with distant voices, applause, and cries. And today, as we stand before it in awe, if we listen closely, we can still hear it. The murmur of the crowd, the clash of shields, the roar of the lion. The Colosseum isn't ancient, it's eternal. There are still hidden stories, forgotten wonders, and journeys through time waiting to be told. Subscribe to the channel. The next journey will surprise you.